Michel de Montaigne and Authenticity in Writing. By John Vespasian. The confusion between authenticity and subjectivity keeps exerting a negative influence on philosophy and literature. It is wrong to call an author authentic just because he is giving a personal opinion devoid of reasoning and unconnected to facts. When historians categorize the essays written by Michel de Montaigne, 1533 to 1592, as authentic, they mean that those essays contain his opinions or anecdotes about his own life. In my view, they are using the wrong logic in their categorization. Let me explain why I think they are wrong. Authentic is the opposite of false, deceitful, adulterated, manipulated, untruthful. The whole point of authentic writing is to present the truth, not to come up with a different version of falsehood, deceit, and manipulation. Take for instance Montaigne's essay of Death, in which he includes some personal comments about deceased members of his family. The authenticity doesn't reside in the subjective tone of those comments, but in their accuracy and truthfulness. Are those comments helping readers apprehend the insights that Montaigne wants to convey of death, or are they giving a false impression, despite their entertainment value? Montaigne's subjectivity and authenticity. Subjectivity does not mean authenticity, far from it. I could recount my early life and fill many pages with memories, but the authenticity arises from quality, not from quantity. The important question is whether my memories are conveying true messages, insights, advice, enlightenment, or not. If those messages are distorted or inaccurate, we shouldn't speak about authenticity. Montaigne had understood the difference between authentic and subjective. He committed himself to pursuing the first and avoiding the second, but his attempts led to unequal success. In his essay titled Of Experience, Montaigne recounts that he had adopted the motto, "What do I know?" (Qu'est-ce in French), as a starting point of his writings. Montaigne had committed himself to pursuing the truth, and his approach matched the definition of authenticity. When he did not attain the mark, it's because he did not manage to find the correct answer to the question he had raised. Montaigne's authenticity compared to Rousseau's. Almost 2 centuries after Montaigne's death, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, 1712 to 1778, wrote his autobiography Confessions, in which he interpolates subjective comments on every subject under the sun. Should one then categorize Rousseau's Confessions as far more authentic than Montaigne's essays? I don't think so, due to the highly subjective tone of Rousseau's comments. Although I do find Rousseau's Confessions entertaining, I wouldn't categorize them as truthful and insightful. Subjective comments, no matter how copious, convey little value. I refuse to rate them as truthful because they are seldom supported by solid reasoning. Like Montaigne had done in his essays, Rousseau often performs self-examination in his Confessions. Readers learn that Rousseau wanted to be authentic, but his anecdotes and travel recollections fail to draw conclusions of general value. I hold Montaigne's literary and philosophical authenticity in higher esteem than Rousseau's. Why? Because Montaigne did his best to find the truth. He didn't invent or distort history, and his occasional errors are to blame on his limited library. In contrast, Rousseau had no qualms rewriting history to fit his arguments. In his essay Discourse on the Origin and Basis of Inequality Among Men, Rousseau wants to give readers the impression that his historical arguments are truthful, but those are stories he made up himself. It wouldn't make sense to categorize Rousseau's literary and philosophical approach as authentic because it was precisely the contrary. Instead of portraying the truth, Rousseau was using false, deceitful, adulterated, manipulated stories. Montaigne's authenticity compared to Henry Miller's. I regard Henry Miller, 1891 to 1980, as the best literary heir to the introspective authenticity practiced by Montaigne. Miller wrote mostly in the first person, recounting his private life and career struggles. In contrast to Rousseau's, Miller's observations are accurate and thoughtful, often accompanied by conclusions of universal value. He romanticizes some of his adventures to render them more poignant, but his conclusions remain waterproof. For Montaigne, the most authentic essay is probably the one on experience. For Miller, my choice goes for Big Sur and the Oranges of Hieronymus Bosch, published in 1957. At that moment, Miller had returned to the United States to settle down in California. The book consists of short essays to which I would give a full rating for authenticity and wisdom. They fulfill the philosophical quest that Montaigne had started 4 centuries earlier. If you are interested in putting rational ideas into practice in all sorts of situations, I recommend my book titled On Becoming Unbreakable. For more information, go to johnvespasian.com.